Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, better late than never, we are finally breaking down the Week 12 Saturday main slate of college football DFS for the 2025 season. That's right, we're going to get through every game on the DraftKings main slate for Saturday, November 15th, and tell you what you can expect from each game, as well as who needs to be in or out of your DFS lineups on DraftKings and FanDuel, as well as any leans if you're looking to bet player props or sides and totals for these games. Yes, I know I'm a little bit late this week. It's just the way the schedule worked out. Basically, Monday and Tuesday, I had the MACtion slates to cover, as well as some college basketball content. And then Wednesday night, last night, I coached in the state playoffs for girls flag football for the school that I coach for, and we won 2 games. But I was not, getting it home at 9:30 at night and having any desire to do research and record. I was exhausted. So here we are, got the research done, recording here on a Thursday night. So hopefully we got you guys plenty of time to listen and digest this breakdown and make those DraftKings lineups for the Saturday main slate. Reminder, we are going to be doing our live show on Friday night this week around 9-ish Eastern time. If you're subscribed to the channel, you will know when we go live. And if you're subscribed to the channel, you can be with us for the rest of our college football and college basketball content all season long. All right, without further ado, y'all waited long enough. Let's go ahead and dive into this Week 12 main slate. All right, so game number 1 is between South Carolina. They're heading to College Station to take on Texas A&M. The Aggies are 18.5-point favorites with a game total of 47.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 33-14 in favor of Texas A&M. That means with an implied team total of 14 points, there's not a whole lot to be interested in on this South Carolina side. However, I'm personally, looking at this slate, not the biggest fan of the quarterbacks on this slate. I'm just not. I don't think this is a good QB slate. And so I am tempted to play Lenore Sellers, just for a few reasons. First off, you're pretty much guaranteed he's going to get double-digit rushing attempts. He has in every game against an FBS opponent that he's finished this season. And you're guaranteed that he's going to have a chance to make a lot of plays because they're going to be down in this game. The ball's going to be in his hands, right? Now, he has been entirely mismanaged this season. The South Carolina offense has been an unmitigated disaster. Their offensive coordinator, if you are not aware, is Mike Shula. Most famously, the offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers when Cam Newton was there. And it appears as if Mike Shula's strategy has just been to go tell Lenoris this season, hey, go be Cam Newton. And spoiler alert, not everybody's Cam Newton. So it hasn't really worked out for the South Carolina offense this year. But I do think this A&M defense is a little overrated. I do think there is a pathway for Lenore Sellers to put up a lot of fantasy points. It just depends on if he's going to make the cut or not, because he's certainly not near the top of my list. And honestly, I would not play him stacked with a receiver or a running back. So it would just be Lenore Sellers on the South Carolina side. Now, for Texas A&M, we've got Marcel Reed here, and he's been really good this season, just been a total revelation for this team. I still have slight concerns about his deep accuracy, and if, we need a score from Marcel Reed, are we going to be able to get it? But that's probably not going to be the case here in this game. South Carolina's pass defense is pretty good, though. They're ranked 22nd in passing yards allowed. So Marcel Reed being up here $8,400, that does put a pretty lofty expectation on him. However, you've got an implied team total of 33 points. His rushing volume has gone up significantly since Le'Veon Moss has gotten hurt, and he's had 2 of his last 3 games over 34 DraftKings points. So Marcel Reed probably, I don't think he's like this slam dunk home run play, but I think he's one of my favorite high-priced quarterbacks of the weekend. Now, at the running back position, Texas A&M does have Reuben Owens, who has been functioning as the workhorse with Le'Veon Moss injured. However, Owens has definitely had his ups and downs. 4 games or pretty much 5 games as the starter. 3 of them over 20 DraftKings points, 2 of them 11 or less. So definitely some ups and downs here. South Carolina is a pretty good run defense. I mean, it's a little bit feast or famine. You know what it's going to be. Well, I guess you don't really know what it's going to be, because it is going to be feast or famine. But, you're either going to get a big game or a dud. And if you're willing to roll the dice on that in GPPs, I wouldn't blame you. I would rather just play Marcel Reed, though. Now, there is an injury that we do need to be privy to, and that is Mario Craver, the Texas A&M wide receiver. He has been probably, let's be honest, their second best wide receiver all season long. Hasn't scored since week 3, which is kind of an oddity. It's really decreased his fantasy production. But if Craver is out, and he's currently questionable for this game, they have shown no ability to throw to any receiver other than KC Concepcion and Mario Craver this season. So what I think, if Craver is out, that just increases the workload for KC Concepcion. And let's be honest, if you got KC Concepcion at $6,200, he's the only guy Marcel Reed's throwing to. That's a really easy stack and a really comfortable stack, in my opinion. So if Mario Craver is out, definitely going to have me some Reed and Concepcion stacks. All right, next game up is a battle in the Big 12. between Arizona and Cincinnati. Also, I don't know if y'all are having this issue, but DraftKings has been super slow for me on the browser for like the last month, which really makes doing these shows quite difficult. Anyway, Arizona taking on Cincinnati. Cincinnati is 6.5-point favorites. Game total of 56.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 31-25 in favor of the Bearcats. Now, let's talk about this Arizona side. So Cincinnati's defense has been quite vulnerable all season long. We have seen them get caught up in shootouts, which is very good for DFS purposes, right? They're ranked 105th nationally in passing yards allowed. Noah Fafita has shown the upside to get you 300 yards. He's done it twice this season. He's shown multiple passing touchdown upside. Heck, he's had multiple passing touchdowns in every game since the Kansas State game, which is the last 6. So Fafita there at $7,100, I'm kind of intrigued, especially as a game stack option, because I do think you can stack this game up. At running back for Arizona, I could not have less interest. This is a three-headed monster, complete committee on a team that likes to pass the ball, hard pass. At the wide receiver position, though, there's a lot to like for Arizona. They do have the kind of their new number one receiver, Chris Hudson. He has kind of been coming into his own lately, at least 4 catches in the last 4 games. Now, the yardages have been kind of hit or miss. The touchdowns have been hit or miss, but he's very clearly being targeted as this team's number 1 wide receiver. Javin Watley has been kind of functioning as the wide receiver 2 over that span. Now, what is interesting is Chris Hunter is supposed to be back for this game. That is big because what happened last week was Trey Spivey at 3K was a full-time player last week in place of Chris Hunter, who was injured. And Spivey at 3K to me was a very intriguing punt if Hunter was going to be out for this game. But it appears that Hunter is in, so that definitely dampens my interest in Trey Spivey. But I do think that there are other viable punts at the wide receiver position here on this slate. Now, on the Cincinnati side, they've got quarterback Brendan Sorsby, who is like low-key a competitor for Big 12 Player of the Year. He's just been outstanding for Cincinnati this season. I've been banging the drum for him all season long. He's mobile. He scores fantasy points in bunches. You know, these Cincinnati games tend to get going back and forth. I like me some Brendan Sorsby. Downside is he's darn expensive this week. They're at $8,800. That gives you a target of like, just for 3x value, you need about 26, 27 DraftKings points. And that's a lofty total for Sorsby. However, because of his rushing upside, it certainly can be done. Arizona's a good pass defense. They're ranked 10th nationally in passing yards allowed. But Sorsby's a really good mobile quarterback. Arizona's been prone to mobile quarterbacks. I'm kind of coming around on Sorsby. I really think the most likely way I'm going to play both sides of this game, though, is in one big game stack lineup, a la what we saw with Duke Clemson a few weeks ago. Now, at the running back position, there's another big injury we need to know about, and that is to Evan Pryor. He is questionable this game. Cincinnati has a 2-headed monster at running back. It is with Pryor and Tawee Walker. Last time Cincinnati played, Walker was the RB1 against Utah, but they got boat raced in that game, so you can't really go by it. I really think Walker is a great play if Evan Pryor is out. At the wide receiver position, something that's frustrated us all season long is the fact that Cincinnati's been really hard to stack because they do involve a lot of guys in the passing game. But it could be less this week because Caleb Goody is currently questionable. It appears that Jeff Caldwell is ceding a lot of snaps to Noah Jennings, so it makes kind of neither of them targetable. And so you're left with the tight end Joe Royer, who has been hit or miss. And then you also got Cyrus Allen, who has just been super consistently been the number 1 targeted wide receiver for this team. He actually had a good game against Utah because he caught an 88-yard bomb. So definitely a guy that has a ton of upside, the guy that is functioning as the wide receiver 1 and is much more clearly the number 1 stacking partner thanks to the injury to Goody and the rotation between Caldwell and Jennings. Next game up is probably one of the best real-life games on this slate, certainly one of the most with college football playoff implications. It is Notre Dame traveling to, is it Acrisure Stadium now? I know they quit calling it Heinz, but it's the Pittsburgh Steelers Stadium, but it's home to the Pitt Panthers on Saturdays. Notre Dame's traveling there, and they are 12.5-point favorites with a game total of 53.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 33-21 in favor of the Irish. Now, what is interesting for Notre Dame is I think how Pitt determines to play this game is going to very much determine the game flow of this game. Hear me out. Pitt is a good run defense. They're ranked 5th nationally in rushing yards allowed, but they haven't played a running back like Jeremiah Love. No one has, in fact, unless you played Notre Dame already, because Jeremiah Love's the best running back in the country. I think he should be the favorite for the Heisman Trophy. That is a story for another time. If Pitt decides to just come out in their base defense, Jeremiah Love's going to gash him up, kind of like what he did to USC, right? If Pitt decides to load the box and really dare Notre Dame to throw and throw deep, CJ Carr is a very interesting DFS play. CJ Carr is like very quietly having a really, really good season. 19 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Just doesn't get a whole lot of passing volume because, Notre Dame, they're winning these games big, and they have the best running back in the country. But if Pitt loads the box up and dares CJ Carr to beat him, CJ Carr can beat him, and CJ Carr can put up a lot of DraftKings points in doing so. So I am fairly intrigued in CJ Carr in GPP formats. I am intrigued with Jeremiah Love in all formats. Like Jeremiah Love, I don't care that Pitt is 5th nationally in rushing yards allowed. I don't. Like, he is the best running back in the nation. He's $10,000 on DraftKings. He's in the same category as like Ollie Gordon, Ashton Genty, who was the guy in Minnesota a few years back, Mo Ibrahim, Bijan Robinson. Like, no matter how much the cost is, you just play him every slate because it's not even like he's getting the same volume as a lot of those guys. He just breaks off a long touchdown run every single game. Like the Boston College game 2 weeks ago was super quiet until he breaks off a 94-yard touchdown run. And oh yeah, there's instantly 15 DraftKings points and the 100-yard bonus. So make it 18 DraftKings points on one run, right? He has the ability to do that. And he's just a really tough fade. Like if you're playing multiple lineups, I feel like you got to get him in. And even though he's up there at $10,000, there's enough cheap quarterbacks, there's enough cheap wide receivers, and I think there's 2 really, really solid running back plays this week. Aside from Jeremiah Love, I think that you kind of have to put him in your player pool if you're playing a lot of lineups. Now, at the wide receiver position for Notre Dame, this is one I'm really intrigued in just to kind of see as it's developing over the course of the season. Jordan Faison is the volume king, the target king in this Notre Dame offense. Just super consistently targeted, super consistent, high floor DraftKings producer. Have no problem with playing him at $4,800. Will Pauling, like all he does is score touchdowns. He had 5 straight games with touchdowns before the Navy game. Now that streak was snapped. Ton of upside at $4,000. But I like Malachi Fields the best this week, and I'm going to stand on business with that. Malachi Fields is the guy that Notre Dame targets when they want to throw deep. He's been at 13 DraftKings points in each of his last 2 games, and only one of those he caught a touchdown in. The bottom line is if Pitt decides to stack the box, they're going to be giving up one-on-one shots to Malachi Fields, and eventually Malachi Fields is going to get one. And $3,700, he doesn't need but 2 of them, or for that one to end in the end zone, and he's instantly paying off value. I like Malachi Fields this week. Now for Pitt, hear me out on Pitt, y'all. Notre Dame is by far the best opponent the Pitt has played, and I don't think it's particularly close. Like, this is just a different level of competition, different level of athlete than they're used to seeing. It makes it really hard to like the passing game, even though Notre Dame's pass defense has been a little vulnerable. I just think that Mason Heinschel is awfully expensive there, $8,500 for a guy going up against Notre Dame. The guy to like in this Pitt offense is Desmond Reed. That's right. He's back. Desmond Reed is back, and he is only $5,800 here on this slate. We have seen Desmond Reed in the time that he's been active this season. In the games that he's finished, 19.8, 16.5, 43, 15.9. That's not bad. That's the games he started and finished this season. He's $5,800, and he gets targeted heavily in the passing game. Against Florida State, 8 catches, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns. This is a guy that if he'd been healthy all season would be a 9K player. And he's $5,800. Yes, I know the matchup against Notre Dame is tough. I know Notre Dame is a good defense. But the potential workload that you're going to get out of Desmond Reed for a guy that, according to the coach, is, and I quote, fresh and healthy this week, this could be a big Desmond Reed week. I'm going to be playing a lot of Desmond Reed. Next game up, we've got Michigan taking on Northwestern. And honestly, this game is being played at Wrigley Field. And I don't expect the weather to be great for this one just because, it's Chicago in November in a baseball stadium. And Michigan's 11.5 point favorites. Game total is 41.5 points. I struggle to see it getting to 41.5 personally. I think this is an under bet for me. Michigan is implied to win 26-15. For Michigan, I'm out on playing Bryce Underwood. I'm not doing it anymore this season. He is a good quarterback, but he is being held back from a fantasy perspective by the offense that he plays in. And they just don't give him a lot of passing opportunities. And it's hard to score fantasy points if you're not passing the ball when you play quarterback. The wide receiver position, I will shout out Andrew Marsh for Michigan. He's very much operated as the wide receiver 1 over the last 5 weeks. It's definitely something to monitor moving forward. I don't think I'm getting to him this week, but I do think that Michigan does have the best overall running back play on the slate. Playing for them here in this game, Justice Haynes is out. Jordan Marshall is in. Jordan Marshall, over the last 3 games since he's been starting in place of an injured Justice Haynes, has averaged 30 DraftKings points in those 3 games. He's scored 5 touchdowns. He's been over 20 every single time. And now he's taking on Northwestern, which is not a great defense, in an environment with weather that might be beneficial to running the football. Jordan Marshall at $7,100, very much the best running back play on the slate, in my opinion. He's going to be the highest owned running back for me. Can you play him and Jeremiah Love together? I think you can. I think the Marshall is probably going to edge out Love in terms of ownership for me. I have not posted my core plays yet. I have not written my article weekly for drroto.com yet. Jordan Marshall's probably going to be in both of those. Just a little bit of spoiler alert. Now, on the Northwestern side, not playing Preston Stone, not doing it. Their wide receiver one, Griffin Wilds, had a really productive year. I'm not doing it against Michigan. Sorry. And running back, I think I have the very smallest amount of interest in Caleb Kamafale. Back-to-back games of 27 DraftKings points or more against Nebraska and USC. However, those were against two of the worst run defenses in the Big Ten. Michigan's one of the best. Big step up in matchup, but I kind of see it if you want to play him at $5,400. All right, that does it for the first four games. Let's take a quick breather, and then we're going to move on with the next set. Now, before we continue, I do want to mention there are places where you can get more information from me. First off, you can follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks. It's where I tweet out all updates for the show, as well as I'm more than happy to answer any lineup strategy, any questions like that if you reach out to me on Twitter. I'm also in the Fantasy Corner Discord. Link is in the description on YouTube, as well as the audio feed. If you want in the Fantasy Corner Discord, it's 100% free. It's a community of a bunch of people who talk DFS for a lot of different sports all day long. And I do mean all day long. Just constantly in there talking strategy, talking plays, talking decisions, talking injury updates. It's a very good community to be a part of. And then once the games start, it's sweating it out and having a blast, having fun, cracking jokes together. Cannot recommend it enough if you're looking for a community to be a part of where you can talk DFS. Also, if you want to know who actually makes my DFS lineups, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/Mike's Money Picks. It's where I post every single college football slate. I post my core plays, as well as I write up why they're my core plays. So that way, you know the why of why they're my core plays. So you're not only getting the information, but you're getting the why behind it, which can hopefully help you get better at college football DFS. All right, now let's go ahead and continue on with game number 5, Arkansas LSU. LSU is 5.5-point favorites with a game total of 57.5 points, which means the implied total is about 31-26 in favor of LSU. Honestly, a game total like that, normally you got to have a lot of interest, right? But I just don't have any interest in this Arkansas side, y'all. I just don't. I know they have an implied team total of 26 points. I know Taylor Green is a dual threat that can make things happen, but this LSU defense, I think, is really good. They've held better offenses than Arkansas to less points. And Taylor Green is expensive. Mike Washington's higher price than I think he should be. Omega Blake's higher price than I think he should be. So I'm just off of Arkansas. On LSU side, they got a little bit of a quarterback controversy going on. Garrett Nussmeier's listed as probable for this game. If he plays, is he going to play the whole game? Are they going to give some series to Van Buren? Are they going to be super cautious with Nussmeier? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It makes both the quarterbacks unplayable, which makes the receivers really unplayable. Where I have interest in this LSU side, though, is with a running back, and that is Harlem Berry. Harlem Berry is a big-time recruit, big-time freshman for LSU. He is taking more carries recently than Caden Durham. He is functioning as the RB1. Arkansas ranks 123rd nationally in rushing yards allowed. This is a horrible run defense. Harlem Berry is going to have a chance to kind of, make his presence felt that he's arrived on the big stage here in this game. He's only $5,100 on DraftKings. I'm taking shots in GPPs on Harlem Berry here in this game. All right, next up, we've got West Virginia taking on Arizona State. Arizona State's 11.5-point favorites with a game total of 47.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 29-18 in favor of the Sun Devils. Now, let's talk about this West Virginia side. So last week, we had the cheap chalk West Virginia, if you could call it that, where Scotty Fox was the starting quarterback going up against Colorado, and he was okay, right? Not like a guy that was going to win you a GPP or anything like that, but 15.9 DraftKings points at a salary of $6,200, that ain't going to kill you. That's not bad. Now he's $6,500, a little more expensive, a little worse matchup, by the way, with Arizona State. Definitely more difficult defense in Colorado. That increasing price combined with worse matchup kind of has me out on Fox. I was really in on Fox last week because of the matchup and the price. Both of those things have gotten worse, so I'm kind of out. I'm kind of in on Dior Hubbard, though. Dior Hubbard is the workhorse running back now for West Virginia. He is $5,600. Last week, he put up 21.8 DraftKings points, was super involved in the passing game as well, catching 6 passes for 94 yards. That's the type of usage you like to see in a running back. And we've gone over this all season long in college football. There's so few workhorse running backs that when you have one, just play him. And right now, Dior Hubbard is the guy in the backfield for this West Virginia team. And he's going to be used in the running and passing game. So you got to be interested. West Virginia does not pass the ball enough for me to be interested in any of their wide receivers. So on to Arizona State. So y'all, do you know who Arizona State's starting quarterback this week is? Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. It's Jeff Sims. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he's played college football for about a decade. He's on the Perry Ellis plan. And basically, Jeff Sims, in his wild ride of college football, has been a roller coaster. He's an elite level athlete, just an incredible athlete, but lacks the fundamental skills to play the quarterback position at the Power 4 level. And somehow, he ended up being the backup at Arizona State to Sam Leavitt. Sam Leavitt's hurt, and so now it is the Jeff Sims show. In the Jeff Sims show, hear me out. Look at the last 2 games. 7.4 against Houston, 45.9 against Iowa State. That's the Jeff Sims experience. Is there a chance that Jeff Sims could absolutely go off again? I think so. He's an elite athlete, elite runner, and West Virginia's pass defense is really bad too. They're 128th nationally in passing yards allowed. And here's the best part. Like, you're just playing him in fantasy. Jeff Sims doesn't have to play well to put up a lot of fantasy points, right? Like just ask Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson for Kansas State, for 2.5 years, was a bad quarterback, but put up a lot of fantasy points. And Jeff Sims could do the same thing. Think Justin Fields in the NFL. He's on my TV right now. Like, Justin Fields, bad NFL quarterback, good fantasy quarterback when he's starting. Jeff Sims could be that, and he's got a great matchup. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but Jeff Sims is going to be in my player pool this week. Yeah, I ducked in case any of y'all threw something at me. All right. I think Raleigh Brown, the running back for Arizona State, he's a fine player, good player. Too expensive for my taste. Not going to be playing him this week. Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver 1, is out for Arizona State this week, which means that the targets have condensed around the other guys in this Arizona State passing attack. Shimon Mateer, the tight end, has been really solid. Over 10 DraftKings points in his last 3. Now he's priced up to 5,200, though. That's a difficult click for me. If I'm going to be playing Jeff Sims and I'm going to be playing him stacked, it's going to be with Jalen Moss, transfer from Fresno State, who was really good there last year. Got 7 targets last week against Iowa State. In true Jeff Sims fashion, he only caught 3 of them. But y'all, you got a wide receiver 1 going up against a really bad pass defense, and he's only $3,100. Jalen Moss, to me, is one of the best punt wide receiver plays on the entire slate, if not one of the best point per dollar plays at the wide receiver position on the entire slate. Next game up, we got Oklahoma heading to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. Bama is 5.5-point favorites with a game total 46.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 26-20 in favor of the Crimson Tide. And I got to be honest, y'all, I have so little interest in this game from a DFS perspective. I just see this game being like no scoring, none whatsoever, because you've got 2 really one-dimensional offenses. Neither one of these teams can run the ball. Neither one of these teams have great offensive lines. And I just see 2 really good defenses also, where they're going to know what the other team's going to do, and they're just going to play conservatively and play field position on offense and hope the other team makes a mistake. That's kind of how I see this game going. On the Oklahoma side, John Mateer's carried their offense the entire season, but ever since the hand injury, John Mateer is not top 20 DraftKings points, and that has been against worse defenses than what he's going to see today. I'm out. At running back for Oklahoma, Xavier Robinson has been functioning as the running back 1. For whatever reason, Torrey Blaylock was pretty much a non-factor against Tennessee. Can't find anything why, really. Xavier Robinson was the guy. Is he going to continue being the guy? I don't know, but he's going up against Alabama. I don't really have a whole lot of interest. On the Alabama side, Ty Simpson, we've loved him all season long, but he's a pocket passer that doesn't give you dual threat upside going up against this Oklahoma defense, where Ty Simpson has not put up 23 DraftKings or more than 23 DraftKings points since September. And this Oklahoma defense is better than every single defense on that list. So I'm out on that. Maybe you could talk me into playing Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver, because he's got a very reasonable price tag. But I don't know, man. I think this game could be a total cross-off for me. Next up, we've got a Big 12 clash between UCF and Texas Tech. Texas Tech's 23.5-point favorites with a game total of 47.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 35-12 in favor of the Red Raiders. Yeah, that's about how I see it too. UCF on this slate, total incomplete crossoff. This Texas Tech defense is legit. They held BYU to basically nothing last week, if we're being honest. Nobody from BYU gave a relevant score for DFS. And UCF's offense is kind of a train wreck. They only scored 3 points against Baylor. Y'all, if you can't score against Baylor, how in the world are you going to score against Texas Tech? At quarterback, they look like they might be turning the keys over to Davy Belfort. He did come in the game after Taven Jackson was struggling. Is that going to continue? I don't know. They're probably just going to go back to Jackson, but just wanted to put it out there that they did give Belfort some snaps here in the most recent game. At running back, Miles Montgomery is questionable. Maybe have a little interest in Jaden Nixon if he's out, but Texas Tech is statistically the best run defense in the nation, so you don't have to do it. On the Texas Tech side, I'm not going to be playing Baron Morton at quarterback. He's kind of like Bryce Underwood West, where Bryce Underwood is a good real-life quarterback, not being asked to do a whole lot in the flow of the offense. Baron Morton's kind of the same. Like, this team is not winning games because of Baron Morton throwing the ball through the air, right? In his last 3 games, he hasn't topped 16 DraftKings points. Hasn't topped 21 DraftKings points since September 13th. I'm not interested in playing him at $8,100, especially considering he's coming off of an injury. Apparently was in a walking boot. They're going to look to get him out of this game as quick as possible. So I just don't see it being Baron Morton like a great fantasy play. I do see it being a great day to run the football for these Texas Tech running backs. Add that to the fact that UCF's defense is a little bit of a pass funnel. They rank 18th in passing yards. I'm sorry, they're a little bit of a run funnel. My bad. They rank 18th in passing yards allowed and 69th in rushing yards allowed. So the UCF defense is going to allow a little bit of running, and Texas Tech has got 2 guys they're going to run it with. And they're both really good. Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams, both really good. Now, Dickey is likely to have more carries. Dickey is also the red zone back. But Jacoby Williams, we've talked about him all season long. This is a Jacoby Williams show. Jacoby Williams closing in on volume to Cameron Dickey. He gets usage in the passing game, and he is an explosive runner, has a run of 40 yards or more in each of the last 2 games. Also returns kicks. Every now and then he'll get one of those for a touchdown. Jacoby Williams at $5,000 in a game that Texas Tech should win in a blowout, in a game that Texas Tech is going to be looking to run the football, in a game that Texas Tech is going to be looking to create explosive plays. I think Jacoby Williams is a really solid play. I would not fault you for playing Cameron Dickey either. At the wide receiver position for Texas Tech, we've talked about this all season long. They throw to 4 guys pretty much equally distributed, and none of them seem to ever give GPP winning scores. So I'm just kind of out on that front this week. All right, that is 4 more games down. Let's take a quick breather, and then we're going to continue on with the last section. Now, before we continue, just wanted to mention, if this video is helping you out anyway, please make sure you hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube. Please rate and review if you're listening on audio. Y'all, I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate it when you guys do that. Those likes in the comments and the ratings and reviews, they help the algorithm so much, help the show get found, help grow the community. November is a huge time of growth for this channel because of the fact that college basketball is starting, because college football is kind of apexing. And so those likes, they do go a long way in helping more people find the show, which grows the community, and I really do appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and talk about this Virginia Duke game now. So Duke is 4.5-point favorites with a game total of 58.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 31-27 in favor of the Blue Devils. So on the Virginia side, big question mark here at quarterback. Chandler Morris, who's been their guy this season, is very questionable for this game. I don't know if he plays or not, but if he does play, I'm kind of interested. Duke ranks 131st nationally in passing yards allowed. They're a really bad secondary, really bad. Morris can take advantage of this. The backup, Daniel Kalen, look, I watched this whole Wake game last week. I watched the entire game because I kind of like Wake. Like, they're kind of like the local Power 4 team for me. They're about 20 minutes from my front door. And Kalen, while an elite athlete, does not have command of this passing offense in the way that Chandler Morris did. You can't play Kalen at $7,800, even if he's the starter. Even as bad as the matchup is, I can't do it. Just if I hadn't watched him play, I might be tempted into it, but you can't do it. At running back, they've got Jamari Taylor. He had a really good game against Wake from a DraftKings perspective. Well, I wouldn't say really good. An okay game against Wake from a DraftKings perspective. 18.8 DraftKings points, largely because he caught 7 passes for 30 yards. I think that may be the case again. If Kalen is the quarterback, he might get a lot of usage in the passing game. I think he's worth a shot in GPPs because everybody's going to play Jordan Marshall or pay up all the way to get Jeremiah Love. I don't think anybody's going to be playing Taylor, so you might have a chance to get him at low ownership this week. At the wide receiver position, as bad as this Duke secondary is, to me, this would be the way I would want to target it because, like, think about it. If Kalen only throws for 150 yards, he's not going to hit value in DFS. But if 100 of those yards were the same receiver and they caught the ball 7 times, like, yeah, that guy's going to hit value, especially considering they're really cheap. Now, they really throw to 3 receivers, Adrien, Harris, and Ross. They've all been kind of in and out of the lineup, in and out of the usage. Right now, the in vogue receiver is Trell Harris. 4, 5, and 6 catches in each of the last 3 weeks. And the 6 for 60 that he put up against Wake, that most of that was with Kalen at quarterback. And so if Kalen's the starter again, maybe does he have something for Trell Harris? Possibly. But I definitely think that Harris is the guy that I'm going to be looking for at $4,200. And I think that's really going to be the guy you want to try to take advantage of this weak Duke secondary. Now, on the Duke side, Darian Mensah got a little bit of a haircut. He was way too expensive last week. We kind of called it. And honestly, if he wasn't so expensive last week, it was not a bad DFS performance for Mensah. It was only not great because of the fact that he was so darn expensive. Like he still put up 18 DraftKings points. If he was 6,400 like he was against Clemson, that would have been totally fine. But for 9,500, he killed you. And so I do think that he's going to be back this week. UVA is a little bit of a pass funnel. I think $8,000 is still a little too expensive for a guy like Mensah that doesn't provide a whole lot of rushing upside. But Duke, team total 31 points. Maybe I have a little bit of interest here. I'm not really interested in Nate Shepherd at $8,000 this week. Last week, I played him against UConn, was totally satisfied because he was great, 26.5 DraftKings points. But the matchup is much worse this week. Virginia's a pretty stout run defense. At the wide receiver position, look, Duke throws the 2 guys. They throw to Barkate and Keyshawn Brown. I definitely think you can play both of them. They're not like my favorite. They're not going to project all that well. But it's a good passing offense with a good matchup with good target shares. I got no problem with it. Next up, let's talk about the matchup in Miami. We've got NC State traveling there to take on the Hurricanes. And so this is a really intriguing matchup for DFS. Super high total. Miami is 15.5 point favorites with a game total of 55.5. Meaning the implied total is about 35 to 20 in favor of Miami. Now, Miami is a really good defense. So this NC State side, they're coming off of like an all-time high, huge upset over Georgia Tech, put up 48 points. CJ Bailey, has basically now arrived. He is a star. This guy's really good. And look, as a Texas fan, if Arch Manning goes to the draft, I don't mind throwing the bag at CJ Bailey. I think this guy, if he were playing for like a big-time contender, would be really, really good. I really like this kid's game. He was great against Georgia Tech, 34 DraftKings points. Can he do that against this Miami team? Debatable. Miami's one of the best defenses in the country statistically. They rate out really well in rush yards allowed and pass yards allowed. But Bailey's $7,300. We just saw him do it against Georgia Tech. I think he's going to make my player pool, but it's TBD on how big of a part of it he's going to be. At the running back position, let me give you a very quick if-then for this running back position. Hollywood Smothers is the normal starter. He's really good. He's only $6,400. But the problem was that before he got hurt, and he is hurt, he was ceding work to Jaden Scott, right? When he was out against Georgia Tech, when Smothers was out, Jaden Scott put up 31.7 DraftKings points against Georgia Tech. I don't care who the matchup is. Miami's a good run defense. Yes, I know that. Jaden Scott looked great in that game. And so I think it's a very simple if-then. If Hollywood Smothers is out, I am interested in Jaden Scott, and he will make my player pool. If Hollywood Smothers is in, it's likely to be a big-time split between the two of them, and I have zero interest in a running back committee going up against a good run defense. Now, the interesting part about CJ Bailey is that, he's kind of hard to stack. Justin Jolly is the best wide receiver for this team, and he's not even a wide receiver. He's a tight end, and he's questionable for this game. He didn't even play in that Georgia Tech game. And so you end up just with, this kind of hodgepodge of random wide receivers that Bailey throws to. Grimes put up 4 for 49 against Georgia Tech. Terrell Anderson put up 2 for 59. He's kind of a big play guy. Noah Rogers was the guy against Georgia Tech without Justin Jolly. And so if Jolly is out again, Noah Rogers at 3,300, putting up 7 for 72 against Georgia Tech, I think he's a guy I'm willing to go back to. Another one of the viable punts at the wide receiver position on this slate. Now let's talk about the Miami side. So their quarterback's Carson Beck, who, everybody just loves and adores. Not a super high approval rating on Carson Beck, especially in the DFS community, because he's burned some people before, right? Whether it was at Georgia or at Miami, he's probably burned you playing DFS. And the last time we played him was the SMU game, and he put up 18.7. Like, that's not terrible. But now he's $7,700. That would be bad. But here's the thing. This matchup is juicy. NC State ranks 136th in passing yards allowed in the FBS. Y'all know how many teams there are in the FBS? There's 136. That's right. NC State, statistically, is the worst passing defense in the FBS. They just let Haynes King throw for 400. We're used to seeing Haynes King passing props being at like 170. So this is a bad pass defense. Carson Beck, this is time to have a really good performance. Like, if not now, then when? Carson Beck. $7,700, I'm willing to pay it this week because of that matchup. At the running back position, we do have an injury to be alert about. Mark Fletcher Jr. is out for this game. And sadly, we saw a big-time committee the last time he was out. Shamar Brown, Jordan Lyle, and Gerard Pringle all kind of split carries. The leader in the clubhouse was Brown. He also caught 5 passes in that game against Syracuse. Brown will be the guy I would have interest in. But, man, it's a committee, and that's tough. Like, I could just see Shamar Brown being like 25% in GPPs and just totally flopping. That's within the range of outcomes. Makes it a really tough click, and I have no interest to try to invest in the other sides of the committee either. The wide receiver position, there's another injury alert we got to be aware of for Miami, but it's not with Malachi Toney. Malachi Toney's great. He's one of the best freshman wide receiver in the country. Probably is the best freshman wide receiver in the country, honestly. And he's been pretty good. He's kind of been up and down, right? But if Carson Beck's going to have a big game, Tyler likely Malachi Toney's going to have a big game. I'm in. CJ Daniels is back for this game. He has missed the last 2. And what happened in the last 2 was we saw Josiah Trader return from nowhere, right? Like, this guy was drafted in pretty highly in best ball drafts back in the summer, which, by the way, I advanced like legitimately like almost exactly 25% of my teams. I did slightly better than average on advance rate. Whether or not any of the teams do anything in week 12, 13, and 14, we'll see. Anytime you got chances, you got chances. Last week, I killed it on advance rate, killed it in week 12, and then week 13 was my demise. So, we'll see how it goes this week, and definitely look in the offseason, troubleshoot, see where we went wrong, where we got right in best ball, and go from there. But anyway, I traded on a decent amount of those best ball teams. And he's basically been back from the dead because of the CJ Daniels injury. 19.1 and 4.9 DraftKings points, heavily targeted, basically operating as the number 2 wide receiver in those games. Is he going to be back again if CJ Daniels is active? And CJ Daniels is active. So I don't know what's going to happen for Josiah Trader. I don't. But $3,100, he's another viable punt here on this slate. All right, next 2 games. These are going to go by quick. I can tell you that right now because the team's playing them. They're going to go by quick. We got Iowa traveling to Los Angeles to take on USC. The Trojans are 7.5-point favorites, game total of 48.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 28-20 in favor of the Trojans. Now, here's what's interesting. Iowa, y'all know how I feel. Iowa guys, you generally don't play them in DFS. They generally don't work out. Mark Gronowski at quarterback, though, I'm tempted. 3 straight games over 17 drafting points, and he's being used basically as a running back. 4 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 games. USC, notably bad run defense. I think I'm in. $6,300, and like we already talked about these high-priced running backs that I want to pay up for, like Love and Marshall. I think I'm in, y'all. I think I'm in on Mark Gronowski, and that feels crazy to say. And I think I'm also in on the running back, Kamari Moulton. He's back to being the workhorse running back. Now, fortunately, the statistics haven't really bared that out. It's keeping his price tag down at only $6,600, but he is getting consistent carries. He is getting consistent volume. He just hasn't scored touchdowns, and he hasn't broken off a whole lot of explosives recently, Well, you're talking about USC. Did you watch this team play Notre Dame? All they do is give out rushing touchdowns and explosives. So I think this is actually a pretty good spot for Kamari Moulton as well. But I'm going to stop right there, though. I'm not playing any Iowa wide receivers. Not doing it. Not doing it. Even if I'm playing Mark Gronowski, I'm not stacking him. It's just going to be Gronowski. Now, let's talk about the USC side. Y'all, we've also talked about in the past how you could kind of just cross out the team going up against Iowa more often than not. I kind of like a few guys on the USC side in this game as well. I think there might be some sneaky scoring in this game, y'all. So Jaden Mayava, we've chronicled him all season long. He's had his ups and downs, but the ups have been pretty far up. The downs have been pretty far down. Well, actually, not too far down. He has had a game under 16 DraftKings points, right? But I don't think Iowa has had to cover anybody like this USC receiving core. And so I think that this USC passing attack could give some issues to Iowa. And I think if you're talking about in a GPP where everybody's going to stay away from Jade Mayava because, you can't play the quarterback going up against Iowa, you get a 2% quarterback here. Nobody's playing expensive quarterbacks either. Nobody's going to have this type of build. You're going to have a low-owned play in Mayava, low-owned strategy in paying up at quarterback. What if he just puts up 30 DraftKings points by throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns? I think there's a chance that's within the range of outcomes. And because the fact that it's so condensed in the passing tree, you got Mekhi Lemon averaging 9 targets a game. It's going to be Lemon. He's had 2 games this season over 40 DraftKings points, 2 more over 34. Like a Love Lemon stack is going to be so different, so out there, so outside the box, that if it does hit, man, it's going to hit. And so I think I'm going to give it a shot this week. I'm slightly less interested in Lane. Yes, Lane does still get a lot of work, 7 for 74 and a touchdown last week. But Lane's expensive now. Lane used to be cheap. And I will say also, I am not playing the USC running game going up against Iowa. No, sir. No, hard pass on that. Last game of the day, we got Penn State taking on Michigan State. And y'all, let's be honest here. Did DraftKings just set this slate automatic back in August and just of course, Penn State and Michigan State, those are going to be 2 good teams, right? Let's put them on the slate. They did not have to have this game on the slate. There's much better games than this. They're not on the slate. And so I kind of have beef with this game being on here. I also don't think you have to play it at all. Penn State 7.5-point favorites. Game total 49.5, meaning the implied total is about 28-21 in favor of the Nittany Lions. Grunkemeyer has been just abysmal as a fantasy option. The running back position, it's still a committee between Allen and Singleton, and they haven't had a lot of success, but they're at a point where Singleton's 4,800 coming off of 30 DraftKings points against Indiana. Maybe could I talk myself into Singleton here? Maybe going up against a bad Michigan State defense. And then the wide receiver position, Trevor Pena was the only guy that Grunkemeyer threw to last week. So maybe I could get there on the skill guys, Singleton and Pena. But that's about it, man. On the Michigan State side, we don't know who's starting at quarterback. It was Childs, and then it was the Eastern European guy. I apologize if he's not actually Eastern European. His name looks very Eastern European. Running back, I have no interest in playing a running back going up against Penn State. Amari Kelly at $3,300 is the wide receiver 2 for this team that's coming off of an 8 for 94 game. Maybe he's a little bit interesting at $3,300, but again, add him to the list of the viable punt plays at wide receiver on this slate. We've talked about Jalen Moss. We talked about Trey Spivey. We talked about Noah Rogers. There's just other cheap wide receivers that are going up against better matchups in better spots. So probably not there for Amari Kelly. But all right, y'all, that is going to do it here for this Saturday main slate. Like I said, better late than never. I apologize for the delay, but sometimes life happens, and that's just how the schedule worked out this week. Hopefully you guys still enjoyed the content. Hopefully you guys are still able to get all the information you need in order to build some winning DraftKings and FanDuel lineups for this Week 12 main slate. Remember, if you like what you saw in this video, please hit the like button. Please rate and review if you're listening on audio. Helps me out a ton when you guys do that. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you will know when our content for the rest of the college football season drops, as well as when we go live, which will be Friday night this week around 9 p.m.-ish Eastern time. All right, that is going to do it for us, though, y'all. We're going to go and roll on out of here. Best of luck to you guys on this Week 12 main slate. Thank you guys for watching and listening to this point, and I will see you guys next time.